The circulatory system is composed of the heart and blood vessels, including arteries, veins, and capillaries. Our bodies have two circulatory systems, the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. A pulmonary circulation is a short loop from the heart to the lungs and back again. The systemic circulation sends blood from the heart to all other parts of our bodies and back again. The heart has four chambers that are enclosed by thick muscular walls. It lies between the lungs and just to the left of the middle of the chest cavity. The bottom part of the heart is divided into two chambers called the right and left ventricles, which pump blood out of the heart. A wall called the intraventricular septum divides the ventricles. The upper part of the heart is made up of the other two chambers, the right and left atria. The right and left atria receive the blood entering the heart. The apex is located towards the bottom of the left ventricle. The left and right auricles are located here on the superior part of the heart. On the anterior side of the heart, the interventricular sulcus divides the right and left ventricles. And towards the superior part of the heart, the brachiocephalic artery is the first branch off of the aorta. The superior vena cava is located on the right superior part of the heart, and the inferior vena cava is located on the right inferior part. Both the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava empty into the right atrium. A wall called the interatrial septum divides the right and left atria, which are separated from the ventricles by the atrioventricular valves. The tricuspid valve separates the right atrium from the left ventricle, and the mitral valve separates the left atrium and the left ventricle. Here's a diagram of the heart so you can clearly see the different parts. The two other cardiac valves separate the ventricles and the large blood vessels that carry blood leaving the heart. These are the pulmonic valve, which separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery leading to the lungs, and the aortic valve, which separates the left ventricle from the aorta, the body's largest blood vessel. It's hard to see, but this is an internal view on the left side of the heart. You can see the left atria and the left ventricle. The trabecular carinae, pectinate muscle, and the bicuspid valve are also seen. Lastly in here are the chordae tendineae, the papillary muscles, and the pulmonary vein, which all make up the left side of the heart. Similarly, this is an internal view, however, of the right side of the heart. Again, it's hard to see, but you can see the right atria and the right ventricle. Further in, you can see the pectinate muscle, the tricuspid valve, the chordae tendineae, and the papillary muscles. The vena cava is also seen on the right side as it empties into the right atrium. This diagram shows the four chambers of the heart and the way that they empty in through and out the ventricles. One complete heartbeat makes up the cardiac cycle, which consists of two phases. In the first phase, called systole, the ventricles contract, which sends blood into the pulmonary and systemic circulation. To prevent the flow of blood backwards into the atria during systole, the atrioventricular valves close, creating the first sound, called lub. When the ventricles finish contracting, the aortic and pulmonary valves close to prevent blood from flowing back into the ventricles. This is what creates the second sound, the dub. The ventricles then relax, which is called diastole, and fill with blood from the atria, which makes up the second phase of the cardiac cycle. In the systemic circulation, blood travels out of the left ventricle to the aorta to every organ and tissue in the body and then back to the right atrium. This happens through the arteries, capillaries, and veins of the systemic circulatory system. In the pulmonary circulation, blood low in oxygen but high in carbon dioxide is pumped out the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, which branches off into two directions. The right branch goes to the right lung, and the left branch goes to the left lung. In the lungs, the branches divide further into capillaries. Blood flows more slowly through these tiny vessels, allowing time for gases to exchange between the capillary walls and the millions of alveoli. During the process called oxygenation, oxygen is taken up by the bloodstream. Oxygen locks onto a molecule called the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. The newly oxygenated blood leaves the lungs through the pulmonary veins and heads back to the heart. It enters the left atrium, then fills the left ventricle so it can be pumped into the systemic circulation. So here is the left atrium of the heart of the cat, and across from it would be the right atrium. Moving superiorly to right here, we have the right auricle of the heart. And then here you have the aortic arch, which is seen on this thing right here. The brachiocephalic artery, which is seen right in here at this pin. And then the left subclavian artery, which is seen right there. The right subclavian artery is seen by this pin right here. And moving more superiorly, you have the right common carotid artery, and then the left common carotid artery. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. In the systemic circulation, oxygen-rich blood is pumped from the heart into the aorta. Two coronary arteries branch off at the beginning of the aorta and divide into a network of smaller arteries that provide oxygen and nourishment to the muscles of the heart. Unlike the aorta, the body's other main artery, the pulmonary artery, carries oxygen-poor blood. From the right ventricle, the pulmonary artery divides into right and left branches on the way to the lungs where blood picks up the oxygen. Veins carry blood back to the heart, and the two largest veins are the superior and inferior vena cava.